People need to hear this story because if you haven't read or heard about what's going on, this shit is real. It's happening everywhere. It's affecting everybody. And it does affect the real estate market in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Hey, thanks for tuning in to episode 320 of the Real Estate Podcast. Today, Ariel and I are talking about fraudulent immigration that's happening in your own backyard and how it affects the real estate market.
Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast, your go-to source for raw, unfiltered stories and expert tips. Whether you're a buyer, seller, tenant, landlord, or realtor, join us as we dive into the world of real estate.
Actually, that we can start with that poll question right there. Is it chamomile or chamomile? And
do you leave the bag in? Anyways, I'll have to because I got nowhere to put it.
It depends on the temperature of the water, potentially.
Well, it's fresh out of the pot.
Did you put anything in it or is it black?
Well, I mean, it's kind of yellow, browny yellow. There's nothing in it. You put stuff in chamomile?
Which, if you put nothing in it, it's considered black tea.
No.
Even if it's not black.
I disagree. There are black teas.
If you go to Tim Hortons and you order a peppermint or a chamomile or whatever tea.
With nothing in it.
With nothing in it.
That's what I say. I don't order it. I never get coffee out, though. Not anymore. But anyways, I know what you're saying.
I don't. The only tea that I put anything in is peppermint or an orange pico and just a splash of milk. That's it.
Very nice. So what are we talking about today, partner?
Oh, you're getting right into it, eh? Don't want to see how I'm doing.
I know
have
how
any
you're
kind
doing.
of conversation. Want to get right down to business. You know, people that listen and watch actually like learning a little bit about what's going on in our lives, how the week is going. You know, get to know us a little bit too.
Do they?
Sometimes we get into antics and banter. People like that.
Some people just like when you get to the point.
Maybe I think they just like it.
Maybe you think so. I've never been diagnosed, but a form of ADHD.
I diagnosed you a long time ago.
But part of that, I think, is I find it extremely difficult to listen to the monotonous details of things. And I'm just like, get to the point. And I'm that way with every conversation.
Unless it's something you're really interested in. I'm very much that way too. But if I'm listening to like a sports podcast,
yeah,
especially like if it's Maple Leaf related, and I'm a big Toronto Maple Leaf fan, as you know, and in the heat of the season, sometimes I listen to all that monotonous shit because you get into it. It's almost like, you know, watching a show. It's no different than watching a show. You're just listening. So you just have to find the shows that you like, that you want to listen to.
I don't know. I disagree. I think it's different. I think we're talking about different things. But I know what you're saying.
Well, podcast is very, discussion.
Well, maybe we should tell the audience what we're going to talk about. So when we do get there, they know whether or not it's worth sticking around for.
Well, what we're going to talk about is not where the conversation really is going to stem to, because it's the premise of the whole conversation where there's a lot of fraud going on with immigration.
Yes.
And I want to talk about that, but then how...
Well, that's what the conversation is. It's about immigration, fraudulent documents, sketchy people, and we'll tie it back to how it affects the real estate industry,
right.
Of course.
Do you want to get comfortable with your
No, I am
there,
good.
Or?
I'm just relocating my mic a little bit so I can reach my tea.
You're double fisting it today.
I got water on the right. Well, I've had this cough for like 2 weeks, so I need to keep lubricated.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Good.
Do you want to start with a story?
Like a personal story?
No, I don't care about your personal story. I want your articles.
No, I meant a personal story relating to this.
Sure.
Well, the personal story relating to this is really something we've talked about in the past, that I have received applicants or applications, I should say, on properties that we are representing or have represented for lease. Specifically, I remember one, it was about a year ago, early this year, or maybe late in 23. New immigrant had all of the right paperwork, job lined up, good paying job, money in the bank account, blah, 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 blah. And I started to dig deeper into some of that. And I didn't even go the full gambit because two of the very important documents, which was the employment letter and there was something else, something from the bank or can't remember.
Pay stubs are often.
It wasn't a pay stub because it wasn't work that had started yet.
Oh, I see.
And the story was moving here, got a job. This is my first place in the country, blah, blah, blah. And I could not confirm that job. That job ended up being not legit. So lately, over the past, I want to say 4 or 5, maybe 6 months, if you search illegal immigrant documents or illegal refugee documents, whatever, there are a ton of articles that have come out, and some of them are investigations that are revealing certain practices. So you want to talk about the Turtle Jacks one?
I think that's a good one because it's close to home.
I think that's a really good one. That was the one article that I marked as we got to talk about this.
Yeah, so
People need to hear this story because if you haven't read or heard about what's going on, this shit is real. It's happening everywhere. It's affecting everybody. And it does affect the real estate market in a big way. Mm-hmm. And if you're invested in owning any kind of real estate, this is something that you have to be aware of, especially if you're a landlord, especially if you're renting out a property, whether it's like, I'd even be cautious now with Airbnb and stuff like that too, because these people can just
who knows where they're coming
vanish.
From. Yeah. So
this one is from ICI Radio.
ICI Radio. This is close to home. I think a lot of our audience is in the Halton and Peel region and Toronto and so RCI. This is was an article about an owner, a franchisee of a Turtle Jacks located in Oakville. And the franchisor found out that the franchisee was facilitating fraudulent activities relating to illegal immigration. So it specifically talked about one particular case where there was somebody who immigrated to Canada under the false pretense that their employer, this Turtle Jacks, had permission to hire 2 foreign workers, and so they provided job letters, the whole gambit, and this person was permitted to immigrate to Canada. And it turns out that they were not working there. In fact, not only were they not working there, they were paying $3,000 a month to this Turtle Jacks franchisee in Oakville, who in turn would send some of that money back to this person who had immigrated to Canada. So they were collecting a fee, basically, to give them false documents to state that they were here with the job lined up, which is how they got into the country.
CBC obtained hundreds of documents that suggest the former Turtle Jacks employee was caught in a complex immigration scheme. According to the documents, the man, who's an Indian national, flew into the country in late 2022 with the help of a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. The man was issued a 2-year work permit after presenting a letter from Service Canada confirming his employer was approved to hire 2 foreign workers as cooks, as well as a job offer signed by the restaurant's manager. But WhatsApp exchanges between the worker, his employer, and the consultant suggest that after he arrived in Canada, the man was not initially given any hours. Instead, he said he was told to give his new employer about $3,000 a month in bi-weekly cash payments in order to be added to the restaurant's payroll, most of which would be paid back into his account. He would then be issued pay stubs as proof of employment when he applied for permanent residency.
Crazy. So the immigration officer or whoever this consultant is in on it.
They're
obviously.
all in on it.
That's nuts.
It's a ring of illegal immigration, and it takes it a step further because there are mortgage consultants involved in that same ring as well. So if you wanted to buy a home, you can also provide documents and have forged and fraudulent documentation that the mortgage agent is in on.
Well, immigration has been a huge problem. And finally, Justin Trudeau admits to it not too long ago, saying, we made a big mistake. Took him long enough to figure it out. Everybody's been saying it for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, this stuff is going to happen.
It's happening a lot with students.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of students coming here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think back to all of our landlords, and us owning, a property management company certainly gives us a lot of eyes on this kind of thing. And how many students, especially if it's a property that's in Kitchener or in Toronto, we see a lot of students applying and they're providing documents, but hey, are they real?
Well, not only is it, problematic on an individual basis for homeowners, landlords, stuff like that to determine who they're allowing to stay in their properties, but on a bigger scale, more importantly,
we have a housing shortage as it is.
Well, not only that, but just the government is spending. There was an article I read.
Here's where your property or your provincial and property taxes are going.
Well, federal and provincial taxes for sure. But there's a story I read recently about Syrian refugees who came between 2015 and 2017. So they all came legitimately, I would assume, most of them anyways.
Don't say all.
And so it talked about 50% of the Syrian refugees that came in those 2 years who were on the government-assisted refugee program. So it estimated there was 15,000 people on this program. So say half of them, 7,500 people, are still being paid under this refugee program. So if you just look at that 7,500 people.
So what's that, 7 years later?
7 years later, worked out to be $500 million.
Right.
Spend. It's like $700 to $800 a month per person.
Right.
It's crazy.
Meanwhile, if you need toe repair, you got to wait 8 months.
A toe repair?
Yeah, I'm just saying. You have a little boo boo. You got to wait.
That was a funny reference, but anything. Yeah, certainly money's poorly spent.
It's good. We take care. Send more money. To.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
we don't need to get too political.
Yeah, no, I think there's not much that we can do. It's a government issue, right? But what we can do is, as realtors, is just be very aware that this is very common in the marketplace. Yeah. And think hard about this kind of stuff, because if you're selling a property and you don't know potentially what the buyer's background or their history is, and if it's a deal that has conditions, doesn't have conditions, there's so many different ways to look at it. But if that person obtaining a mortgage is obtaining it in a fashion that's kind of fraudulent, or just they're skipping processes to get that money, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, if the bank finds that out before closing, they're not getting the money and they're
That's
not
right.
closing. So
Yeah.
you're now stuck owning 2 properties.
Yeah. And the lenders now are checking a lot more closely than they ever did. And they are doing final checks prior to closing. So they may want documents resubmitted prior to closing. They may want to do an appraisal prior to closing, which may affect the finance amount or whatever. And now with rates changing, things change. So if you're selling a property, this is another kind of red flag, high alert. Realtors, beware.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it pays to have a reputable agent on your side as a buyer. Because when I'm working with an agent who I know personally or who is known generally because of their level of production and stuff, there is a certain level of confidence that comes with that.
Sure.
So it gives you a higher degree of, higher likeliness that your offer
reputation is everything in this business.
100%.
And if all of a sudden, like a good reputable realtor is not going to lose their clout, their status, their overall professionalism that's presented for one deal, so.
Well, and how do they do that? They do that if you run into an agent who, whether you're looking to rent or buy, if you're looking for an agent who, refuses to take you on a whim without knowing you to see a property, well, that's because that's a professional agent and they want to do their due diligence to know who they're meeting with. And,
well, now it's a safety issue too.
Well, that's part of it too.
Like that poor Century 21 lady that
absolutely
was murdered.
I had an email. So we had an email that went out to somebody inquired recently on one of our rental properties. And they responded to the email immediately saying, hey, I'm not comfortable sending you documents. I'm not working with an agent. I kind of just want to go and see this property. And I responded saying, well, Sylvia on our team will be the one to reach out to you shortly. But just so you know, these are the reasons why we do require these documents. And if you're not comfortable providing it, that's fine. But if you want to see it with us, this is why we need you to do it.
We can debate this in so many different ways. I kind of agree with tenants. So here's my, I kind of agree with that statement from that tenant or that prospective tenant. I wouldn't want to send documents with my financial information, my credit information to somebody I don't know. So here's my answer to both those realtors that are trying to shortcut the process or jump to that point of the process. And for the tenants that aren't comfortable is get a proper consultation.
Yes.
So interview, okay, you're only renting a place, but you are committing probably for 12 months. Average rent is $2,500 a month. So you're going to be spending $30,000 over the next 12 months on the place that you're going to live. Wouldn't it be prudent of you as a tenant to interview somebody that will actually help you maybe negotiate a better deal, maybe make sure that the proper T's and I's are crossed and dotted, maybe advise you on certain things, maybe know a little bit about the neighborhood, know who to call to set up your utilities. All of those things are super important.
Well, and save you having to tell your story to every single real estate agent.
The challenge is a lot of realtors don't want to deal with leases.
Yeah, true.
They don't want to take the time because there's no money in it. Let's face it, you're going to spend, it takes an average.
The only time, I think there is money in it if you do it properly. Like there are agents making 6 figures off of leases because they streamline their process.
Sure.
They qualify people. They have very...
And then those people are very appreciative that you took the time to properly consult them, properly do due diligence and all of the right work. And then they often become long-term clients where they do more business with you in the future. They tell their friends, their family, and you become the realtor that they go to for anything real estate related, which is what realtors should be in the business of doing. So the fact that they don't want to do leases is bullshit. We do now over 10 leases a month and on average, and it's a lot of work but it's worth it. Anyways, you got to have the proper guidance, the proper consult. Everybody needs to have their antenna up right now.
Well, and that's it. Tying back into the conversation is if real estate agents are getting people pushing back a lot, then one of two things is happening. Either you're really not conveying to them the reason for needing things and documents and doing your due diligence, or they're here illegally.
Yeah, they're part of this fucking scheme.
Right.
Which exists.
100%, yeah.
There's been a bunch of realtors fined and their licenses revoked in the last few years because of fraud.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and it's not slowing down. Nobody seems to be stopping them. Every industry, for sure.
And it will forever be a problem. It's just a matter of
being
improving and minimizing the likelihood of it.
Sure. We saw it in the automotive industry a lot.
But how much could this guy at Turtle Jacks be making? Like, how many illegal immigrants is he getting money from? And how much of that $3,000 is he getting? They said most of it was sent back. So let's say he's getting...
No, they mentioned it later that like 20 of the 3,000, about $2,000 was going back to him. So he's making like $1,000 a month.
Well, the other person's the consultant's getting something.
Yeah. Well, so in another article with another illegal immigrant, the immigration consultant charged in one case $40,000, the other $50,000. And in that was basically your employment bundle and all the paperwork you need to provide to Service Canada to get your 2-year status. And but in those two cases, nothing was ever, so even that was fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, send me $40,000 and I'll send you all the stuff you need. And they got nothing.
Well, and this doesn't just happen with immigrants.
Who are you going to complain to? It's like my drug dealer ripped me off, right?
I know someone personally who hired a real estate agent, paid them, I think, $500. I've talked about this before. Paid them $500, and this real estate agent created a completely false persona of this person. So they came up with a job letter, references, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this is just somebody that was, I guess, having a hard time renting.
You know,
so you never know. It could be anybody. So you have to be critical of everyone. I don't think you should discriminate.
I don't know if it exists.
Just putting that out there because I don't want any ethics exams or courses.
I don't know if this exists, and if it doesn't, I hope somebody creates it. AI technology to scan for falsified documents.
I read there was something, trying to think, I think some of the credit check companies, like I use Single Key sometimes. There's a couple others out there. Obviously Equifax, TransUnion, where these other companies get all their data. They also offer services that do things like that, or they're up and coming, that they will be. I remember reading that somewhere.
Right.
So it does exist.
The technology exists.
Yeah, so I guess it's tapping into the federal system or provincial system to verify that ID is legit. But it could be...
Well, in Canada, there's only 2 credit reporting systems.
Mm-hmm.
So they're producing documents that are pretty consistent, like they are consistent. If you pull your TransUnion report and I pull mine, they look exactly the same.
Yeah.
So is there a way now to run a random tenant's application that provides you a TransUnion credit report? Is there a way to check that if it's fraud or not? I have my own tools, which...
Well, what do you mean? Because I pull a credit report for the last step in my process for qualifying a tenant is I always purchase my own credit report to verify that it aligns with the one they provided.
If I take, let's say you're representing a tenant.
Yes.
And you build your tenant package, and you send that off to the landlord, and that includes the landlord's representative.
Yeah.
If they have a realtor. And that tenant package includes the credit report, right?
Yes.
So if you're on the receiving end of that,
Like feed it into scan it and say, is this legit?
Right.
Instead of pulling your own report.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. A lot of interesting. If you're a realtor listening to this and you've experienced anything, leave a comment. I'd love to hear some of the stories that are out there that I haven't heard yet.
I still can't get over this Turtle Jacks thing. How much does it cost to buy a Turtle Jacks franchise?
I don't know. Maybe somebody from the company. That company is huge, though. I worked for that umbrella at one point years and years ago.
Yeah.
I think they own. Well, they own Swiss Chalet. They own.
I said in here there was.
I think they own Subway or Mr. Sub. One of the two. Must be Mr. Sub. Anyways, hundreds of restaurants across the country, but they took immediate action. They said they had 90 days to basically leave the MTY franchise system. Yeah,
and they own 50 Canadian brands.
Yeah,
Manchu Wok, Baton Rouge, Country Style, Mr. Sub.
I haven't been to Baton Rouge in years.
Is there one by Square One?
I know there's one by Winston Churchill and QEW 403 there.
Those places change all the time.
Yeah, they got great ribs.
Do they?
Oh, awesome. I haven't had ribs in
time.
Ages. I want to go there now.
Well, there you have it. That's our story today.
Next week, I'm just going to drop this. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough data yet, or the final data to review our 2024 predictions.
Somebody's going to win a gift certificate that we offered to put out there a year ago.
Yeah.
In January, we did a podcast where we made our predictions. And
so anybody that commented, we're going to see who's the closest.
Yeah.
Between you and I, and then the comments. But next week, get prepared. We're going to talk about our 2025 predictions. I'm going to give it some good hard thought here because I can't lose.
Oh, are you assuming you lost?
No, I think we both lost.
I think
we
I
both
was
lost.
The closest.
No,
100%.
I don't think so. No way.
100%.
No fucking way.
100%.
You said it was going to be flat.
You said it was going to go up.
And I think it went up closer to my number than it
went
did
down.
No, okay, we'll see. That'll be in 2 weeks' time, hopefully.
All right.
But next week, we're going to talk 2025 predictions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. See you then.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for watching or listening to today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming episode, and comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about in an upcoming episode.